Righty, everybody stand up now. Come on, it's been a long afternoon, hasn't it? All together now, big stretch, big stretch. Does that feel better? Feel good? One more talk, 15 minutes between you guys and a drink. So you're gonna stick with me? Are you good? Sit down. If you don't stick with me, we could do aerobics. I'm just gonna go there for a second. So thank you, Napara. Thank you to the amazing Kia team for putting this incredible event on. Have you had a great afternoon, everyone? I've just been so inspired. And having spent the last 20 years living in the United States, I'm going to talk to you today about some pretty significant cultural shifts that are happening over there that are starting to take place in this country. So I want to give you a little bit of a warning sign of what's coming. But I have to just take a moment and thank Welby, because I'm actually getting quite emotional. Seeing a leader like that stand up in this country and say, this is how you go about being successful. Was that not the most beautiful speech? And I feel such a kinship with a lot of what I'm going to talk to today, so it makes me have such confidence with what's coming. All right, so I'm going to start with my childhood. Despite the fact I have a slightly twangy American accent a little bit, I did grow up here in New Zealand, a good old New Zealand, and all I wanted to be was a champion of something. I wanted to be the best at something. I didn't know what, but something. Remember the royal wedding with Kiri Te Kanawa singing with Diana in that awful dress? I could sing in tune, so I thought that I could be Kiri Te Kanawa. Only problem is I never got picked for solos in high school, so that was out. Tennis. My older sister Rachel was freaking awesome at tennis, so I was like, if she can do it, maybe I can do it. I went dressed as John McEnroe to a kid's birthday party. That's about as close as I got with tennis. And then the stage. Does everyone remember Elaine Page, Evita, back in the 80s? I wanted to be, look at that picture. I wanted to be on the stage just like her. So I tried out for Sandy in our high school production of Grease. Didn't get to be Sandy. Didn't get to be a pink lady. I was in the chorus, you know, the section for people who don't belong on the stage. You're just down here. So things were not going so good. And every time I missed out, I would do the same thing. I would go home, go up to my room, slam the door, lie on my bed and get so upset. And my mother would come upstairs every single time and say, Sissy, every dog has its day. Just keep trying. So I was like, okay, that's what I have to do. And that is why it breaks my heart when I see the cultural shift that happened in the United States that is starting to take over the Western world. When we came out of the Depression era into the boom times, think into the 80s, around then, we decided that in order to empower and encourage the younger generation, that the best thing to do was to shield them from pain, to shield them from failure, and to start rewarding them for participating. Has anyone in this room heard of participation trophies? That is a participation trophy. And the sad thing about this culture is at every level, we started to reward average results. So kids were showing up to soccer and getting a trophy just for showing up. Actually, my husband recently was trying to introduce the Player of the Day trophy to our soccer, my son's soccer team, and the other parents, this is in the United States, said, no, we can't do that, only if we agree to give it to every kid each week, so everyone gets a shot. Like, really? But then you go into high school. Certainly in the United States, there's a huge issue with teachers having a really tough time disciplining kids because the parents complain to the school complains to the teacher says, I'm not allowed to get that kid in trouble. That's bullshit, right? College level, a recent study, the top 200 colleges in the United States, 40% of the grades are now A's. Just think about that for a second. I never got an A at university. 40% of the grades are A's. And then we get into the workforce. A recent study of 700 companies in the Fortune 500, a quarter of them noted that first-time employee entrants, their parents got involved in helping them with the interview to get them the job. And lastly, probably what frustrates me the most as a manager, as a business leader, we are constantly bombarded with paperwork saying to us, well, this is the millennial generation. If you're going to hold on to the talent, you have to plan their careers for them. Otherwise, they're going to quit. It's your job to career path for them. Seriously? I ask the question, are you robbing someone of their potential? Because when you do the work for them, when you take the risks for them, when you cover up the mistakes for them, you're actually denying them the ability to learn. You're actually also denying them the ability, one of the greatest fulfillments in life is to set your own goals and to go for them and achieve them under your own steam. Nothing is more fulfilling than that. Parents, do you agree?
Yeah.
So let's go back to my childhood failures. We now know I was not a professional tennis player, nor did I make it to the stage, nor was I a particularly good singer. However, I continued to listen to those words from my mother, keep trying, right? And I just thought, well, if I keep on trying, find the good, the bad, eventually I'm going to find something that clicks. And my first real example where it started to work was when I finished university and I was trying out for my first jobs. And I don't know if it's still the same here in New Zealand, but in those days I had done a commerce degree and I wanted to work like an entry-level graduate trainee job, and the big companies would come along and say, everyone who wants a job, take all these tests. Like, it was very standardized testing to see if you're decent IQ, if you had the ability to get the job. So we all took these tests, and I remember the day of the test, I completely fucked them up. Knew it. And I went home and I was like, I just want so badly to work for Air New Zealand. And I got what we used to call in those days a PFO letter.
Yeah.
Yep, saying, no, you're not going to get the job. Now, meanwhile, I'd taken the exact same set of tests for Mobil Oil and done quite well in them. And they'd offered me a job. So I could have taken the job at Mobil. It was a respectable job. But do I look like an oil girl to you? I wanted so badly to work at Air New Zealand. So you know what I did? I decided to be a stalker. So I went back, and I went to the woman who was in charge of hiring, her name was Vicky Lodge, and I just said, please, please, just get me an interview with the hiring manager. Let me explain why I am worthy of this job. And to some incredible gift from I don't know where, she agreed to do it. I met with Albert Lovell, the hiring manager. We had about an hour. I had spent so long preparing for that interview so that I was ready to explain to him what I could do for the airline. Not what I wanted the airline to do for me, what I could do for the airline. And he gave me the job. And in the end, I was the 7th graduate trainee out of a group of 6. They created an extra job for me. And anyone who's worked in corporate America knows to create a job, to get the budget, the whole thing takes a miracle from God. So I literally was the luckiest person on the planet. And I believe when you put your balls on the line, you'll push harder to succeed. I had put myself out there. I had asked these 2 people to go way above and beyond what they should have done to give me a job. And you know what? Because of that, every single day, I was so determined that I would not let them down. That was an important thing. They were my support crew, and I was going to over-deliver no matter what. And I had a great career at Air New Zealand that went on for about 6 years. And then things started to get really good. The girl who'd been failing all the time was suddenly doing well. I ended up stalking again, actually, a job at Virgin Atlantic Airways, which is awesome. Get in the door, things were amazing, I got promoted, everything was going great. This is a picture of me, my 26th birthday at the Cannes Film Festival hosted by Richard Branson. I thought I was the shit. Did you think I was the shit? I did, right? Couldn't have been better. I was like, finally everything I've been waiting for, it's all happening. It's all going to be good for me for the rest of my life. Life is good. And then what happened? Sorry, my thing's coming down. Let's see. Oh, I don't know why it's not going forward. Oh, the Virgin suicide. So I got promoted and shifted across to Virgin Megastores. Anyone old in the room remember Virgin Megastores? We used to have those round things called CDs. I joined Virgin Megastores at the time when Napster had just been created. Do you guys remember Napster, free music? So when you're in a business that's selling round things with music on them, and some kids are giving it away for free, not a good environment. Anyway, the business was under huge pressure, everything was going bad, there was no good leadership, and I was so full of myself, because I'd just been partying with Richard Branson, by the way, so listen to me, peeps, because I know what's going on. And what happened? I got my ass fired. Big, bad, embarrassingly, beautifully fired. And let me tell you, getting fired wasn't like a layoff of 20 people, it was one, just one. Literally, it was the classic pack up the box, walk through the office with everyone. It was like prairie dogs looking up over their cubes, like, who's the woman? Like, she's a shit show. What happened to her? Yes, I got fired, just me. It was pretty bad, right? So I thought, what am I going to do? I've got a one-way ticket back to New Zealand and 3 months to figure out how to get another visa, otherwise I was going to get deported. So I made my job getting a job, and I eventually got offered this amazing role at Atari. Thing is, when it seems too good to be true, it usually is. Would you want to work alongside this? To be clear, I was single at the time, and problem was, I took this job, double the pay from what I'd been fired from, bigger title, a team that was 4 times as big as what I'd been managing. I thought, everything's back on track. How good can this possibly get, right? It's awesome. Completely overlooked the fact that I cannot stand video games, never have liked them. In fact, I kind of subscribe to that stereotype of spotty young boys playing inside, not getting any exercise. Hey, couldn't fit in there at all, and what do you think happened? I got fired again. So now what? The canyon of career despair, 4 years in my 20s, which is when I think most people would think you should be going up, where I was a total train wreck. Does anyone think, had I been raised with participation trophies at all the things I described before, that I would have figured out how to move forward? Anyone? I don't. And that's exactly the issue. The truth about success. It's really interesting to me when I give speeches to college-age kids in the United States. It's really interesting. You go through the stuff about hanging out with athletes and corporate jets and going to the Super Bowl and all this great stuff. No one wants to hear about that. They just go, how the fuck did you get fired twice and end up running a $5 billion sports business, right? Because why? Nobody talks about failure. We have become a society, not only are we doing participation culture all the way up, but it's now everyone's a winner culture. Have you noticed everywhere you turn, the cottage industry of celebrating success everywhere? It used to be the 40 under 40 awards, then it was the 30 under 30, then the 20 under 20. My literary agent recently told me she had a pitch for a memoir from an 8-year-old YouTube star of his life story. 8 years old, and this was being taken seriously. So the point is, if you're a young person growing up today, aren't you going to sit there going, everyone's crushing it, what the hell happened to me? Like, we're just telling everyone everywhere that success is all that happens, and we're not telling the truth about what goes on behind the scenes. This is a picture of Bodie Miller, who's the greatest American skier of all time, and he is my favorite person that talks about failure, because the way he became the best skier is he decided, if I learn to crash more often than the other skiers, then on race day, I'll be able to go faster and get around the gates when they're all falling. That's how he became the best skier in the world. So the truth about success is you have to take really big risks and be willing to take really big failures if you're going to get there. So from my experience, I actually started to really see that come to life when I got my career back on track. After the second firing, I then landed up at Nike. I spent 6 years there, which is where I met Bodie. And it was awesome. Everything was going so great. And do you know why? Because I had this giant, amazing advantage called humility. I'd finally learned that I was a shit show and it was time to figure out how to get it on track. And just by listening every single day, I finally got to be really quite good at what I was trying to do. And then came the opportunity to join this company, Gatorade, which was a stagnant business. It had stopped growing, a $5 billion business. Now, everything's going well at Nike. I really should have probably stayed there, right? But by now, I'm quite resilient. I'm good with getting fired. So hey, how bad can it be? So I took the job. As my old man used to always say, without risk, there is no reward. I joined the company, and it went from being stagnant, which is not growing, to the US economic recession happening in October 2008. And we went from stagnant to basically declining $500 million a year off our top line. That's how bad it was. The problem is that decline, it actually happened with the recession, but it also happened at the same time as I rolled out a totally new rebranding for Gatorade. So you can imagine what that felt like. Everywhere I turned, retailers, Wall Street analysts, you see this article, Pepsi sweats over Gatorade. It may as well have said, Sarah Robb O'Hagan has fucked up Gatorade. I mean, really. Sure as hell what it felt like. At any rate, I realized that after about 6 months after this had all happened, I actually came down to New Zealand to take some time out because it was so stressful. I'm like, I'm going to get fired no matter what happens. But I realized that when you've got nothing to lose, you play your own game, right? You actually have to say to yourself, I've been fired before, I've survived it, so I've just got to go back to what I know best. And I went and met with my boss, and I said, now we're just going to play the game my way. Because even though everyone was freaking out that it was my work that had screwed up the company, because I was spending time listening to teenage athletes who were really into what we were doing, I knew in my heart we were on the right track. We just needed to hold tight and keep going. And my boss was amazing. He totally supported me. So we actually came back to the drawing board and we said, okay, why is Gatorade declining? And what we quickly found was the people who were walking away from it were the party animals sitting on the couch having chips and a Gatorade. They were not our core consumer anyway. Meanwhile, these guys over here, the athletes, were saying, love Gatorade, and I wish you'd make a few more products for me. Well, that was kind of cool. So then we started to do some research, and we realized if we reframed the game away from just selling Gatorade to anyone and everyone that has a throat, and instead just go after athletes, we actually started to see the size you see here of the global sports nutrition market. So I don't know if you can see it there, sports drinks at $5 billion. Up until this point in time, we had been battling with Powerade over that $5 billion chunk. Yet when you spoke to athletes about everything they consumed before, during, and after exercise, it adds up to $70 billion. And they said to us, well, we wish Gatorade would make a few more products for us than just sports drinks. Conventional wisdom up until that point had been that we were just a beverage. But when we reframed the game, we thought of ourselves as a sports fuel company. And instead of just making drinks, the spit in the middle, we started making protein shakes for recovery afterwards, and bars, and we made little chewies and all these good things for energy beforehand. And sure enough, the total shitstorm that had happened 2 years prior, we turned this business around and got it back to growing, and it's been healthy ever since. So that's a great story that happened because of the fact that I had been through all of those challenges earlier. And that is really the point of my talk today. I'm currently writing a book called Extreme You. And I've had the incredible pleasure of interviewing about 25 very high-profile people. You see some of the pictures up here. Angela Arendt, Condoleezza Rice, Mr. Cartoon, some people may know. He's one of the most famous tattoo artists in the world. And what I can tell you every single one of them have in common is they did not grow up with participation trophies. They have screwed up every step along the way and rebounded and grown from it and become more resilient. And that's how they've broken through. Because along that process, the extremes of the good and the bad is where you learn the most about yourself. And you learn actually where your true enthusiasm lies and where you truly can do the best in the world. And the three big things I would love for you to take away today that I've learned from all of them. How do you become extreme you? Number one, you ignite your own magic drive. And where that comes from is putting your balls on the line. Every single kid in this room, whatever your dream is, go after it. When your teachers say it's not right, when your parents say it's not right, if you believe in it and you're willing to take the consequences of going after it, you will get there. I truly believe it. Secondly, make failure your fuel. Don't be scared of taking risks. You will screw up, you will make mistakes, but actually those are the moments when you grow the most. And you'll come out the other side and you'll be so much stronger in your own convictions if you've gone through some failures, if you make them your fuel. And then lastly, probably my most favorite, is stay stubbornly humble. I told you about my firings for a reason. It took me a while. What did Steve Renata say about the 18 to 30-year-olds? We've all been there, right? It took me a while to learn to bring it down a notch. If you stay stubbornly humble, what every single person I've interviewed has in common is they believe they're not even close to having made it. They believe that I've got so much more that I have to do and I don't know all the answers. Always keep that in your head because it will keep you curious and it will keep you open-minded. So that's kind of the roadmap to being extreme you, and I hope it's a little bit helpful for you. Thank you.